right, today is Friday, the 20th of October, 2023, and I'd like to adopt the saying that goes, thank God it's Friday. Welcome, guys, to the Friday edition of Sports Spring on Western Spring Television. It is the very last installment for this week, and at this point in time, I would like to thank you for sticking with us from Monday till today for the last installment for the week. A whole lot of story, of course, is in stock for you this morning, and I will be dishing them out to you one after the other. And aside from that, I will be joined by Testimony AGEH in terms of analysis and, of course, giving you updates this morning. So all of this and more is what I have in store for you. We'll talk about the Nigerian Premier Football League. Aside from the Nigerian Premier Football League, we'll give you updates coming in from the African Football League. We'll definitely get into the world of Formula One as well as tennis. It's set to be an interesting weekend also because international break is over and club football is back. So all of this and more, definitely I will be dishing them out to you this morning. Welcome on board once again. My name is NENGI ERNEST Ademola. Thanks for sticking with me. After this break, I stand to give you more updates. Do stay with us. All right, thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining in, this is a Friday edition of Sports Spring on Western Spring Television, and my name is NENGI ERNEST Ademola. And just like the saying goes, charity begins at home. Of course, let's start off from giving you updates from the local scene. Let's start off with the Nigerian Premier Football League. Matches are slated for this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and I will be dishing that out to you one at the time and one after the other today. But first and foremost, let's start off from the matchday 4 fixture, which has been postponed from the week. Now, the Nigerian Premier Football League matchday 4 encounter between the defending champions, Eyimba FC, and Doma United has been postponed. Doma were scheduled to host the People's Elephant at the Pantami Stadium on Sunday. However, the clash won't go ahead due to Eyimba's participation in the inaugural edition of the African Football League. Now, Eyimba will host Moroccan giants Wydad Casablanca in the first leg of the quarter-final clash at the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium on Sunday. Meanwhile, Doma United will now shift their attention to the NPFL Matchday 5 encounter against Shooting Stars in Ibadan. We also know that the Savannah Tigers secured a vital point on the road after they held Sporting Lagos to a goalless draw last Sunday in Lagos. At this point in time, of course, let's connect to Testimony AGEH, who is a sports journalist all the way from Port Harcourt. If we can connect to him right now so that, of course, we can analyze this together. But do not forget that the NPFL Matchday 4 fixture, which was slated rather for Eyimba FC and Doma United, has been postponed, and that is because Eyimba FC will be participating in the inaugural edition of the African Football League, which is slated also for the Sunday at the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium in Uyo. All right, we have Testimony AGEH right here with us. He's live with us on the show. Testimony AGEH, good morning to you, and how are you feeling this Friday morning?
Good morning, thank you.
Hello, Testimony. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just want to say, it's not for the Friday season, so just want to get into the group on the weekend. But for us, the weekend is usually not week because we have one for the games, we have the things, we have full of sports and all that.
Of course, Testimony. Yeah, I did adopted that, that saying earlier when I started the show. Thank God it's Friday, because we stand, to gain a whole lot. We stand to view a whole lot of matches this weekend, most especially from the Nigerian Premier Football League, since I am talking about the local scene. Now, Testimony, the match between Eyimba FC and Doma United that was slated for this Sunday has been postponed due to the fact that Eyimba FC, of course, Eyimba FC rather, is to take part in the inaugural edition of the African Football League on Sunday, and that game is slated for the Godswill Akpabio Stadium in Uyo, still on Sunday. Now, let me ask a testimony, Age. Enyimba FC, you know, after their outstart from the CAF Champions League, they did talk about the fact that they want to, you know, shift focus to the Nigerian Premier Football League and see how they can retain their title. And aside from that, also try to get the FA Cup title this time around. But then again, there is an addition to what their focus is on right now. Do you think that Enyimba FC this season will get their priorities right? Testimony.
Yeah, it basically depends on a lot of things. You know, there are a lot of changes at the club. The chairman of the club, what's his name? Thiago, he was changed, and Kano Wankwo was working. And I think that change has brought in a lot of things of our side. But then you have to understand that a lot of things like happen, and for those things to happen in this particular period of time because new structures are being set in the club.
Exactly.
Are trying to make things work. New signings, very young players, very young prospects being added to the side. So they don't want to be reliant on very advanced patrons there. They want to bring very new young players into the side that can aim to really compete in the next 10 years. Because we understand what is happening in the Nigerian scene and how the teams are keeping their age players. But it seems like the dimension of what kind of one was to play on the field of play. And most times, it is not just about bringing those players, it's how they expect the talent outside the show of Nigeria. So, back to the question originally, I know a lot of new things happening out there in Asia, but then they still have the sight on the price. They still have their sight on the 100 million naira scheduled to the price of the MD of our title. Aside that, unfortunately, the loss of the CAF champions, I think, is a really big blow to their entire season, but they've lost to compete. And I think their history, what they've done in the CAF champions, they actually extend the chance to play in African Football League. They are being represented to take place for Sugar Public Stadium this Sunday. But I think it's quite unfortunate that they actually left the competition that early. They would have at least made it to the Champions League. But then I think it gives them a little bit of breather for them to be able to compete in the CAF, not in the CAF now, in the Nigerian Premier Football and also in the Federation.
Okay.
And then to use as an aside the AFL money, but the money is really we are hearing thousands of dollars being given for just participation, just like a thanks for coming kind of thing. So I think if this is your record, by if just things like the side were actually good well. We saw them during the week last week when they won 3-2 in the home soil, even though that team was almost turning on this head, that grabbed that victory of Aqua United. But I'm sure that this boys will get at least one.
And just to go further now, this weekend sets to be an interesting one in the Nigerian Premier Football League. So many games will be played across Saturday and Sunday. Just to mention a few of the games, we have Aqua United against Shooting Stars, of course, another big match to watch out for this evening. Gombe United against Bendel Insurance, Heartland of Owerri against Katsina United, Canopilas against Rivers United FC, Kwara United against Enugu Rangers, Plateau United against Sunshine Stars, Remy Stars against Sporting Lagos. Quickly, testimony in few minutes. Let me have your thoughts concerning the game between Remy Stars and Sporting Lagos.
Yeah, it's a big clash. I think a lot of people are talking about it's the Southwest there, and it promises exciting. You know, coaches are quite young. Daniel is Stars, and we have Paul for Sporting Lagos, who just recently said his CAF license coaching course. And I think it's important for the side that they have this kind of owners that can back the management to actually get the right skill and right skill set to actually manage the side. Sporting Lagos emerged in 2022, and since then, I think they are trying to take the Nigerian Premier Football League by storm. Their social media engagement is massive, and they are quite useful. If you go to the Olachi Johnson Stadium out there in Anikon State, but it's a kind of aura that is exuded by the fans, especially in the happy corner. A lot of things are happening, and they advance on social media about how these trends will not last for a long time. But if you look at the whole Sporting Lagos strategy, this is something that could last for a very long time. And people are saying that this is just another Bandresa SC in the whole system. But then Sporting Lagos have exciting players. They have Christian Woke in goal. They have Jonathan Aluku, who is called the pink hair Barbie, playing from the right hand side. They have the services of Junior Lokosa, who was out there in Plateau United at one point in time. They have Review, a young who plays in the pitch. I think these players are exciting players. Now, going to the other side of the Southwest Derby, look at Remo Stars. Remo Stars, they have actually made the market in the Nigerian Premier League since they came to the Nigerian Premier League. They've qualified for back-to-back continental competitions. Unfortunately, they won't be representing Nigeria in this year's CAF Champions League because they were outset by their opponents. That being said, I think the focus now is back to the Nigerian Premier Football League. We saw their game against Rivers United and how they were outclassed by Rivers United, even though they played very well, I would say. But then that's their former man, and they actually put it down in their heart and celebrated in front of them, which I think is really painful for any fan or any club to take. But then I think the game is coaches like to play out from the back. Both coaches like to keep the ball. And I think it's a kind of possession-based we'll see there out there in when that game holds, because both sides are playing really exciting football. Sporting Lagos have made a mark to actually play some kind of football where they don't just throw the ball away, but they play the ball out of the back and lead to the attack. But one thing to note is that both sides are doing very well. Sporting Lagos haven't conceded in the Premier League this season. I think it's something impressive for a side that have played Premier League
for the first time, exactly.
Yes, 2022, the club was set up, one promotion back to the Nigerian Premier Football League, won the Super 8. I think they had a lot of things to build onto, they had a lot of momentum to build onto. And I think fans of Sporting Lagos should be really, really excited. Now, the proximity to Lagos and Ikene Ogun State is really, really close. So they can have that tough man being in the Ikene Stadium, trying to support them and give them more. But I think that's the kind of clash everybody wants to see when that game do kick off this weekend.
And okay, thank you right there, Testimony, for your thoughts concerning the match between Remo Stars and Sporting Lagos, who are debutants in the Nigerian Premier Football League and who are currently making the mark ever since the new season, ever since the new campaign kick-started. And lastly, Testimony, before we get away from the Nigerian Premier Football League, before we get away from giving everyone updates concerning that angle, we understand that the 20 clubs in the Nigerian Premier Football League have been tasked to provide conducive atmosphere at all times during the matches of the new season. Now, a memo to this effect and signed by the NPFL Chief Operating Officer David Sinowumi observed that there has been a number of disturbing incidences reported around the changing rooms of the referees at some venues. Now, the club bosses were reminded that no club official is allowed access to match officials before, during, and after any fixture. So there you have it. The NPFL has warned clubs to stay away from referees changing rooms because Testimony, we all know that some kind of things might happen at the end of the day where a particular club, maybe a member of a particular club might, want to go in to, bribe or, speak to this particular referee in the changing room. And that changes the entire course of the game. It doesn't matter how good the other team is. It changes the entire course of the game. We've seen this playtime without number. But then again, for last season and this new season, of course, we've seen that there has been a bit of adjustment. And the NPFL is still trying to warn against any club side who tries to, bribe any referee and all of that. Testimony, what are your thoughts quickly on the position of referees in the Nigerian Premier Football League? So far, so good.
Then I have many sentiments about this new development because at the end of the day, these things usually favor most clubs. Match commissioners are now saying something happened in Rivers State and the Adotier and Yeshimata Stadium. Was it on a Sunday? I'm trying to think that. A journalist was assaulted because they thought he was using the phone for the own staff of Rivers United and the referee for the play that game against Kwara United 0-0. The journalist was manhandled, he was punched, his equipment confiscated, broke, and all that. And up until now, the only thing here is that Swan released a statement, and I think that statement is just like a two-players vote, or to just say things and not follow things up. The person is receiving pain at this point in time. Now, why am I saying this? It's the same thing. There was an allegation that they were trying to intimidate referees. Now, who will report this kind of thing? Even if they do report it, at the end of the day, once we, the IMC, last season we were commenting the IMC giving fines to clubs. Bayelsa United received theirs, Remo Stars received theirs. I'm trying to remember, a lot of clubs received their 3 points deduction, 1 pay for all systems. But it seems like they've clamped down on all the systems. We are continually seeing back-to-back abuse of match officials, journalists who wants to cover this game and all that. I understand that you can just go ahead to say this thing. One of the measures being put in place to make sure these things are being implemented, to make sure match officials are not being assaulted, are not being manipulated, are not being twisted into making decisions that they necessarily make. We know the culture surrounding Nigerian football. We know what happens when teams play at home. They make sure they want to get all 3 points before they feel this is the best place to get all 3 points. That mentality. And the only team to have won an away game is Remo Stars when they travel to Bayelsa to win Bayelsa United 2-1. And that's to tell you that's the kind of result you want for the league. Being at home doesn't necessarily get all 3 points. You have to play good people. You have to convince people that you deserve this treatment by scoring goals. And if you don't do that, you can also assault referees, try to assault them or catch making decisions that will favor you. That's what I'm saying. You made this statement, presented. How do you put a statement?
All right.
Questions which should be asked by the end of the day. It doesn't make sense that you just make the statement, and when you make them, nothing happens.
Okay, testimony right there, sharing his thoughts concerning what the NPFL has warned clubs against. You know, they've warned them to stay away from the changing rooms of the referees. We do hope that this is properly looked into, and of course, all of these, you know, will be avoided at the end of the day. Now, lastly, testimony, AGEH. Before we let you go on the show this morning, let's switch attentions to the CAF Confederation Cup, where we have Rivers United still representing in the continent right there. And there was a particular time where CAF, you know, inspected the Adokia Amiesimaka Stadium and approved that they could use that stadium. And then again, after the preliminary stages, we now have the news. Of course, it was reported across all dailies that CAF does not really approve that stadium for the group stages for Rivers United. So therefore, they have been moved back to to Godswill Akpabio Stadium, Uyo, for their group phases game. But then again, yesterday, the news reaching us is the fact that CAF has, of course, inspected the Adoki Amiesimaka Stadium one more time, and a statement will be released. Testimony, there's been a whole lot of back and forth when it concerns Rivers United's home ground, the Adokie Amiesimaka Stadium. What do you feel is the problem? What do you feel isn't right that makes CAF to, you know, actually reject this stadium? Because at a point in time, the Commissioner of Sports for Rivers State, that's Chris Green, talked about the fact that politics is involved. Do you share in that same thoughts, testimony?
Yes. The Commissioner of Sports, Rivers State, Barrister Chris Green, actually made a post on social media. He said the box is being put in place to make sure CAF football returns to the adult and make matters together. And CAF is really right that they don't need substandard stadium to host competition from competitions like that. So this is not the best. This is not a domestic competition, and it has to be televised. I have put plans in place to make sure that this thing happens. We are not sure about that, but maybe after CAF investigation, they're trying to see if that really happened. I think it's a huge disservice to Rivers United if they do not play their home CAF game right in their own backyard in Rivers State. Yeah. Because it becomes a problem to them. Even in normal games where they play their own backyard, the stadium is not sold out. So who do you expect in Akwa Ibom out in what Rivers United? Even though Rivers United is the only team in Nigeria, in the continent, where we are expecting a lot of watch them. You know, preliminary rounds like the group stages, interest people as the knockout stages where you advance to the next stage of competition. But then, for you to actually have this culture come to the stadium, you have to bring this thing close to them. I think that's what Rivers United are fighting. But people are more concerned about a lot of also transport, going to games, and at the end of the day, when you go to this, you're not safe and you're being assaulted and all that. This is what people are trying to avoid. Then taking this competition all the way to acquire even for Rivers United, I think it's a huge deserve to them. And I think they want to fight that, make sure that this game bring brought back to Rivers State.
Okay, all right. There you have it. So many thoughts coming in from Testimony AGEH, a Port Harcourt-based sports analyst, joining me in analyzing, of course, from the Nigerian Premier Football League down to the CAF Confederation Cup. Testimony, I must thank you very much for, of course, finding out time to be live on the show with me this morning. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you on the show this morning.
My pleasure, Nengi.
All right. Do have a nice day ahead. Of course, Testimony AGEH joining me all the way from Port Harcourt, joining me live in the studio this morning to make sure that justice is done to the local scene, to the local stories, talking about the Nigerian Premier Football League and also the CAF Confederation Cup. Of course, we've spent a whole lot of time trying to analyze, trying to share our own thoughts and opinions as it concerns the local scene. And this is right about time we move ahead and talk about other stories before we go on our very first break. Now, our World Football Governing Body, FIFA, has announced that it would live stream the Enyimba versus Wydad Casablanca African Football League quarterfinal in Uyo and other games of the competition to fans of the beautiful game. Definitely, we understand the fact that Enyimba FC, and of course, they were supposed to play a match this Sunday, but that has been postponed due to their participation in the inaugural edition of the African Football League, in which they will be taking on Wydad Casablanca, and that game would go down on Sunday in the Godswill Akpabio Stadium. We do wish Enyimba FC all the best, and definitely we wish that they can get on to get into the semi-finals and of course the finals, and definitely bring this home since it's the inaugural edition. Now, moving away from that, let's also inform you still concerning this particular competition, talking about the African Football League. We also understand that as the much awaited African Football League is set to kick off, the Confederation of African Football has concluded arrangements to unveil the tournament trophy this Friday. I tell you for sure, it's set to be an interesting one, and 8 teams, including Nigerian champions Enyimba International, have been selected among the pioneer clubs for the participation. And of course, this on Sunday, of course, Enyimba FC is going to take on Wydad Casablanca right there at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium, the nest of champions in Uyo. Now, let's leave that aside and also give you updates coming in from the 2026 World Cup qualifier. Recall that the qualifiers game will start next month for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Will take on Lesotho also next month, and this same games are slated for the Godswill Akpabio Stadium. But contrary to the report emanating from certain sections of the media, the Zimbabwe Football Association, that's ZIFA, has decided to adopt Kigali Stadium in Rwanda as their home ground for the 2026 World Cup qualifier. Now, since the release of the draws, some unconfirmed sources have suggested that Zimbabwe will play their home game in South Africa after their home ground in Harare failed to get CAF approval. But contrary to that report, we know that the Zimbabwe Football Association has decided to adopt the Kigali Stadium in Rwanda as their home ground for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, of which they would also be playing against the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Lastly, of course, let's give you updates coming in from the world of unlimited sports, as I will usually call it. And this time around is coming from the basketball, the Women's Basketball League. And just to inform you that MFM of Lagos have emerged champions of the Zenith Bank Women's Basketball League after beating Nigerian Customs 64-60 on the final day of the Super 4 at the Indoor Sports Hall of the National Stadium, Surulere, in Lagos. Now, it was a battle between the two teams that won the Savannah and Atlantic Conference of the Zenith Bank Women's Basketball League, but the Sade Olukoya Queens emerged winners in a thrilling encounter on Thursday. And just to also inform you that en route to the final, Nigerian Customs defeated all their opponents. They didn't lose a single game during the first and second phase of the Savannah Conference, while MFM turned things around during the second phase to emerge winners and a spot in the Final Four. And on Wednesday, Customs lost their games against Air Warriors as the defending champions avenged their defeat during the Savannah Conference with a 42-41 point scoreline. So therefore, congratulations to MFM of Lagos, who have now been crowned as champions of the Zenith Bank Women's Basketball League after beating Nigerian Customs, one of the favorites, 64-60 on the final day of the Super 4, talking about the Women's Basketball League. There you have it. All updates done and dusted coming in from the local scene, from the NPFL down to the CAF Confederation Cup, down to the inaugural edition of the African Football League, of which Enyimba FC, the reigning champions of the NPFL, will be taking on Wydad Casablanca on Sunday at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium, down to the 2026 qualifiers, where we know that Zimbabwe, of course, is to adopt Kigali, Rwanda as their home ground for the 2026 qualifiers. And lastly, we just talked about the Zenith Women's Basketball League, where MFM of Lagos has now been crowned a champion. And of course, this weekend sets to be an exciting one because the international break is over. Club football has now returned, and therefore the party starts definitely today, from the La Liga Santander down to the English Premier League, as well as other top flight football. But then again, not to bore you, giving you football highlights, you know, each and every time. Now, aside from the Rugby World Cup currently ongoing, we also have the Cricket World Cup currently ongoing. So let's take a short break and give you highlights coming up from the Cricket World Cup. We'll be right back.